Marcus barely looked up from his phone as he spoke. Let's keep it simple. No lawyers, no splitting assets. You move out, and I'll let you keep your car. His words hit hard, as if 15 years of marriage meant nothing. I gripped my coffee mug, trying to steady myself. And the house? I asked. You expect me to just walk away from the home I've spent years renovating? He finally met my eyes, looking annoyed. Look, Anna, Megan really loves this place. She already has plans to redecorate, and honestly, you're always out volunteering anyway. It just makes sense. Megan, his 24-year-old girlfriend from the gym. Of course she loved the house I had built and cared for. I took a slow sip of coffee, forcing myself to stay calm. When did you meet her? I asked, even though I already knew. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. That doesn't matter. What matters is that we've grown apart. You're busy with your projects, and Megan, she understands me. She's young, full of life. I held back a bitter laugh. At 42, I had never felt more alive. But Marcus had been too busy chasing his youth to notice. And when do you want this settled? I asked. By the end of the month. Megan's lease is up, so it makes sense for her to move in then. You can stay with your sister while you look for an apartment. He spoke as if he was planning a weekend trip, not tearing my life apart. I stood and walked to the window, looking at the garden I had worked so hard on. And if I said no? Marcus sighed. Come on, Anna. Don't make this hard. You know I can afford better lawyers. Let's keep this civil. I turned back to him with a small smile. You're right. We should keep this simple. His eyes narrowed. Really? You'll agree? Of course, I said softly. I'll start packing this weekend. Marcus seemed surprised by my calmness. He had expected tears, begging, maybe even a fight. Instead, he got quiet acceptance. It made him uneasy. Well, good, he said, standing up. I'll be at Megan's until you're out. Just leave your keys on the counter. As he walked to the door, I called out, Marcus. He stopped. How long have you been planning this? He hesitated. A few months. I wanted to be sure before saying anything. I nodded. That's funny. I've been planning too. He frowned. Planning what? You'll see, I said, turning back to my garden. I waited until the door shut before pulling out my phone and texting my lawyer. It's time. What Marcus didn't know was that I had seen this coming. The late nights at the gym, the sudden focus on his looks, it was obvious. But while he was busy with his new life, I was preparing for this moment. I walked through the house, running my fingers over the walls I had painted and the fixtures I had chosen. In the study, I opened my laptop and pulled up a folder labeled Garden Plans. Inside were no landscaping designs, only financial records, legal documents, and proof of everything I had contributed to this home. A message popped up from my sister. Did he do it? Are you okay? I replied, yes, just like we expected. Time for phase 2. Elena had been my rock, encouraging me to document everything when we first suspected Marcus was cheating. Now all the pieces were in place. By noon, I had made my calls to my lawyer, the private investigator, and a contractor who had helped document my work on the house. Standing in my kitchen, the kitchen I had paid for while Marcus claimed we had no money, I allowed myself a moment of anger. Then I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and got to work. Marcus wanted a simple divorce? He'd get one, just not the way he expected. He had underestimated me for too long. That was about to change. I sent one final text to a group chat I had created months ago. Operation House Guard is a go. Within seconds, replies flooded in. My sister, my lawyer, my closest friends, all ready to help. Marcus thought I was the same naive 25-year-old he had married. He was about to learn just how much I had changed. The next week played out exactly as I expected. Marcus showed up at the house while I was out, bringing Megan along to start planning her changes. What they didn't know was that my security cameras caught everything. Every insult about my tastes. Every smug comment about what they do. This garden is way too much, Megan said on the footage. We should turn it into a pool. That night, my sister Elena and I watched the recordings. She had moved in to help me pack. But in reality, she was documenting everything while I set my next move in motion. Did you see their faces when they walked into your art studio? Elena asked, pausing the video. They have no idea that room alone is worth more than Marcus makes in a year. I smirked, thinking of the custom skylights and ventilation system I'd installed. Marcus thinks I waste money on hobbies. He never even looked at the property assessments I've been collecting. Every upgrade I had made to the house over the last 5 years was carefully documented, paid for with my inheritance and work stipends. Money Marcus never noticed because he never cared. The next morning, I got a text from Marcus. Movers coming Thursday. Make sure your stuff is packed. I replied with a simple, knowing it would annoy him. He always hated when I used emojis instead of words. That afternoon, I met with my lawyer, Sandra. She spread out the documents we gathered, smiling. The house's value has gone up by 287% since you started renovations, she said, tapping the paperwork. And we have proof that you paid for every major improvement. Marcus hasn't contributed a dime since 2019. I leaned in. And my separate accounts? Sandra nodded. All accounted for. The inheritance, consulting fees. Everything is legally yours. Marcus can't touch a penny. While he was busy chasing his midlife crisis, I had been building a case. Every bank transfer, every receipt, every investment, I had it all. What about his better lawyers? Sandra asked, amused. I slid my phone across the table, showing her the private investigator's report. He's drowning in credit card debt. Those fancy gym memberships, the designer suits, all on borrowed money. Thursday came. The movers arrived, ready to pack up the house. I met them in the driveway with a folder in hand. Mrs. Harrison, the lead mover, asked, "We're here to pack up the house." I smiled and handed him a document. Actually, there's a court order preventing the removal of anything until the divorce is settled. Feel free to check with your legal team. Within 20 minutes, the movers left and Marcus arrived, furious. "What the hell, Anna?" he shouted. "I thought we agreed to keep this simple." I stayed calm. "We did. I'm just protecting my property." "Your property?" he scoffed. "I'm the one who paid the mortgage." I raised an eyebrow. "Really? When was the last time you actually checked the mortgage statements?" His face turned red. I could see him struggling to remember when he last looked at our finances. For years, I handled everything while he focused on his career and later, his gym routine. "This is ridiculous," he snapped. "I'm calling my lawyer." "Please do," I said. "I'm sure they'll love reviewing the property assessments and renovation records my team put together." His anger faded into confusion. "What team? What documentation?" I smiled, the same calm smile I gave him when he first suggested our simple divorce. "You know those volunteer committees you mocked? The Historic Preservation Group? The Neighborhood Board? Turns out they're really helpful when proving property values." He finally realized what I had done. For years, he ignored me, thinking I was just playing around with home projects. Now he saw the truth. I had built something real, something valuable, and I wasn't letting it go. "Megan's waiting to move in," he said weakly. "She might want to check the property records first," I replied. "And maybe your financial situation too." I turned and walked inside, leaving Marcus standing in the driveway as his plan unraveled. Elena was waiting in the kitchen with a high five and a glass of wine. "Think he'll finally check those mortgage papers." I sipped my wine, remembering when I refinanced the house 3 years ago, putting it in my name alone. Marcus had signed the papers without reading them. "He'll figure it out soon enough," I said. Just like everything else he should have paid attention to. The truth hit Marcus like a tidal wave over the next few days. Every attempt to assert control over the situation revealed another layer of preparation he hadn't anticipated. When he tried to access our joint accounts, he discovered they'd been properly documented and separated months ago. When he sent his lawyer to threaten legal action, they were met with overwhelming evidence of my sole financial contribution to the property's value. The final blow came when Megan, who'd been eagerly planning her interior decorating schemes, learned the truth about Marcus's finances. I was in the garden, tending to my roses when Marcus's car screeched into the driveway. He looked disheveled, nothing like the confident man who'd announced his plans for our simple divorce just weeks ago. "You planned this," he accused, storming up the garden path. "You've been planning this for years." I carefully deadheaded a rose before responding. "No, Marcus. I protected myself while you were busy destroying our marriage." "There's a difference." Megan left, he admitted, slumping onto the garden bench. She saw the credit card statements, the mortgage documents, everything. Funny how quickly people leave when they discover the truth. I replied, thinking of all the times I'd asked him to review our finances together. All the attempts I'd made to involve him in household decisions. I can't believe you refinanced the house without telling me. I did tell you. 3 years ago. You were too busy with your new gym membership to read what you were signing. I turned to face him fully, just like you were too busy to notice where the money for all these renovations came from. He looked around the garden, really seeing it for the first time, the carefully planned landscapes, the professional hardscaping, the custom irrigation system. All improvements I'd made while he assumed I was just puttering around with plants. Your aunt's inheritance, he said slowly. The consulting work, you weren't just volunteering, were you? I was building something, Marcus. While you were trying to recapture your youth, I was investing in our future, or what I thought was our future. Elena appeared at the back door. Everything okay up here? I nodded, appreciating her protective instincts. She'd been my backbone through all of this, helping me stay focused on the long game instead of reacting emotionally to Marcus's betrayal. The divorce papers are ready, I told Marcus. The real ones, not your simple version. Sandra will email them to your lawyer today. And the house is mine. Legally, financially, and morally. You can collect your personal belongings once the agreement is signed. There's a detailed inventory of what's yours and what stays. He stood up, looking older and smaller than I'd ever seen him. I really messed up, didn't I? Yes, I said simply. You did. After he left, Elena brought out 2 glasses of wine. We sat in my garden, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. You know, Helena said, when you first told me your suspicions about Marcus, I wanted you to confront him immediately. But this was so much better. I smiled, thinking of all the quiet hours I'd spent preparing, protecting, and building while Marcus assumed I was oblivious. Sometimes the best revenge is simply being prepared. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. Marcus moved into a small apartment across town. His dreams of playing house with his younger girlfriend shattered by the reality of his financial situation. I kept everything I'd built, the house, the garden, the art studio, and most importantly, my dignity. The documentation I'd gathered left no room for arguments or prolonged legal battles. Megan, I heard, had moved on to someone else. Someone whose promises of luxury actually had substance behind them. I couldn't bring myself to feel sorry for either of them. 1 year later, I stood in my garden, which had just won the local historical society's preservation award. The irony wasn't lost on me. All those committees Marcus had mocked had actually been building my reputation as a restoration expert, making plans for the new greenhouse. Elena asked, joining me with our traditional glass of wine. Actually, I smiled. I'm thinking of starting a consultation business. There are a lot of old houses in this neighborhood that need someone who understands their value. As we toasted to new beginnings, I thought about how different things might have been if Marcus had just paid attention, if he'd seen me as a partner instead of a convenience. But then again, if he had, I might never have discovered just how capable I was on my own. The simple divorce he'd wanted had turned into a masterclass in preparation and patience. While he'd been planning his escape, I'd been quietly building my fortress. In the end, the house he'd so casually tried to take from me had become the symbol of my independence. Sometimes the best victories are the ones you plan for quietly, while others underestimate you. Marcus had wanted simple. He got simple, just not the kind of simple he'd expected.